Tape from New Jersey, it's the SNL Nerds, the show where two comics from New Jersey nerd out about Saturday Night Live. I'm your co-host, Darren Patterson.
And I'm your co-host, John Trumbull.
John, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, Darren, all things considered. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I still haven't seen you. I haven't seen your face. And we're still talking to you via computer.
Yes, I believe this is our 8th episode in quarantine, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes.
Eighth
time in charm.
This is our new normal, strangely enough. It's
It's I still can't get. I mean, I guess I'm slowly getting used to it, but at the same time, in my mind, I'm like, I shouldn't get used to this. I just still sort of like, I don't know. It's just so damn weird. This shouldn't. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's what it is. We just have to deal with it, and that's we're all just dealing with this stuff as best we can. So
we're all in this together, people. We're all in this
we
together.
are.
So I mean, have you been doing what?
All right, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say so what have you been doing while this has all been going on? Just living the life.
Living the life, chasing the dream. Just trying to stay as normal as possible, doing things like, I've been job searching for a little while, which is not made easier in pandemic world, but I got some possibilities out there, and I'm also trying to work on some of my own projects that is stuff I can work on by myself.
Oh, nice. All right.
So, yeah, what about you?
Staying busy, doing things, making things happen, things in motion. I like it. Yeah, a lot of pots on the fire. Yeah. I've been all right. I've been kind of working from home like everybody else, but I've also started to kind of watch TV shows that I've always heard about, but I never had a chance to see. But now I have nothing but time, so I've been kind of watching. And this kind of ties into SNL. Have you ever seen the show on HBO, Hello Ladies?
I know of it. I know it's Stephen Merchant who co-created The Office and Extras with Ricky Gervais, and it didn't last very long. I've never watched it though, and I don't have HBO. So
okay,
how is it?
It's actually pretty good, but yeah, I saw it on Amazon Prime. Apparently, and you're right, it didn't last long. It only lasted for one season in 2013, only 8 episodes, and they wrapped it up with a movie. So it's like, if you have HBO, you can see the movie on HBO. It's like an hour and a half episode, but it was pretty interesting. It was just it's basically about this tall, nerdy dude, Steve Merchant, moves to LA. He wants to like sort of fall in love. He's very lonely, but at the same time, because he was such a nerdy kid back in London, he's trying to like reinvent himself and be like, this cool hip guy. So he's always obsessed with, being with the cool kids, getting into the cool club, dating the hottest women, and basically trying to get a seat at the cool kids table. But it's just, it just becomes more and more, it's just very apparent that he's just not that guy. He's trying to get in where he doesn't fit in. So
a nerdy guy trying to date successfully. I don't know if there's anything in that show for me to relate to.
Well, yeah, I mean, the guy himself, he's also I don't want to say he's like unlikable, but he does come off like a kind of selfish and at some points and whatnot, and very kind of self-involved. But at this also, you can see he does really want to meet somebody. Is very lonely too. Anyway, this all ties into SNL because when I watched it, who comes out of nowhere? Who's in the series that I didn't know? Kyle Mooney. Kyle Mooney's in this series.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I had no idea that was something he'd done.
Yeah. He did it for a year. And if you watch the show, there's like a bunch of other people who went on to do other stuff in comedy, like the woman that plays, I believe it's Rosa in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I think.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
She's in an episode. The guy that plays Sean on The Good Place, he's in an episode. You see like a few like people here and there who like are doing bigger things in comedy now, and they were all on this show. It was a really good show.
Very cool. Okay, well, if it's on Amazon Prime, I'm going to have to check that out because I do have Amazon Prime. Is the movie only on HBO? It's not on Prime as well?
Yeah, the movie's not on Prime, but yeah, if you have HBO, you could like on demand, you can find it. But like, I mean, the humor is interesting. It's kind of very like kind of cringy type of. If you're a fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm or Seinfeld, you'll like the humor in Hello Ladies. It's very much
Well,
of that vein.
yeah, the original UK Office is also very, very cringy. So that's kind of what I would expect for a Stephen Merchant thing.
Right. So yeah. So yeah. So if you like things along that in that vein, I think you'll get a kick out of Hello Ladies. Right?
Oh, well, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I've been watching. I watched. I took advantage. CBS All Access was offering a free month of their service, so I decided to do that and catch up on Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard. I finished Picard. I'm still in the second season of Star Trek Discovery right now. I wasn't able to finish all of it inside of a month, so I upped for an extra month of CBS All Access because that's how they get you.
The first hit is free.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure that's what they were counting on. But I've been enjoying catching up on those, and yeah, I've been figuring out like, oh well, what are some of the other shows that I want to watch on? Because like Brooklyn Nine-Nine finished their season, Better Call Saul finished its season, and those were both great. So yeah, I'm kind of figuring out, well, what do I want to get to next? What are the shows I've been meaning to check out for forever and haven't? So, but Hello Ladies is one I'll check out. I didn't know that was out there.
Yeah, Amazon Prime. What other shows can I mean, The Good Place, if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it.
That's on Netflix. Yeah, that's on my Netflix queue.
I enjoyed Schitt's Creek quite a bit. You know, of course. Of course, you've already seen Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec had their reunion special this Thursday. That was really something else.
Dude, I didn't realize how much I needed that special till I got it.
That was such a feel-good thing. If you have not seen the Parks and Rec reunion special with all the characters in quarantine, check it out. If you're a fan of that show, it will just make you feel so good.
Right. They actually put it up on, you can watch it. If you have Hulu, it's on Hulu, and they put it up on YouTube for free.
Wonderful. So, yeah, there's no excuse not to watch it if you're a Parks and Rec fan. Yeah, that was just terrific, and they packed in so many fun cameos and surprises, and it was really good.
It'll warm your heart in these uncertain times.
Yeah, but we're here to talk about another project that has SNL connections, although we won't get to those connections for a little while. We're here to talk about a Netflix movie, A Futile and Stupid Gesture, which was released in 2018, directed by David Wayne of The State fame and Stella fame. He's also the director behind Wet Hot American Summer and Role Models. And yeah, he's got a great comedy pedigree there.
Yeah, absolutely. And this film was written by Michael Colton and Josh Aboud, and based on the book by Josh Karp.
Yes, the book by the same title. And it's a biography of Doug Kenny, who is not a name that's known real widely, but he was a very influential figure in comedy.
Right. I mean, I'll admit, like, I kind of knew the name before I saw this for the first time, but I didn't. It's very faint. I really wasn't familiar with him or what he had done.
Yeah. And unless you're like a hardcore comedy nerd, you may not know that. Doug Kenny was one of the co-founders of the National Lampoon in the early 1970s. He was a co-writer and actor in Animal House, and he also co-wrote Caddyshack. And he did all of this in the space of about 10 years. Yeah,
he was something else.
Yeah, that was something else. And this influenced so much of comedy just going forward from that point. So he really is a pretty illustrious and influential figure in comedy.
Yeah, very much so. And then, I mean, the fact that they made this movie about him to sort of highlight that was like pretty fantastic. I think you knew about this before I did. And like when the trailers came out and when they were announcing the cast of who was playing who, you were probably one of the first people I know that was like really like pumped up for this.
Yeah, I remember reading articles about it when it was like in the planning stages, and this had kind of a long gestation process. I actually went on the blog on David Wayne's website at davidwayne.com, and he said this movie's been a labor of love going back 8 years when I was first approached by producers Peter Principato and John Stern and screenwriters Michael Colton and John Abood to tell the amazing story of Doug Kenny. So yeah, long gestation period, as like a lot of movies are. So like I was reading articles about this in like 2016 where they were announcing who was being cast, but the movie didn't drop on Netflix until January of 2018.
Yeah, I mean, and one thing I love about this movie is like the casting. I think the casting on this is pretty A plus.
Yeah, the casting. Let's see. I should give me a minute on IMDb. I'm going to look up the name of the casting director because the casting director, whoever they are, deserves a shout out. Why don't you run through some of the casting people or the people that they cast?
Well, I mean, our main character, Doug Kenny, played by the great Will Forte, as we all know from SNL and of course MacGruber fame. And if you've heard our MacGruber episode, you know how I feel about Mr. Forte.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Who else today?
I just want to toss in here real fast. The casting in this movie was by Allison Jones, Allison Jones, you did an amazing job on the casting of this movie. So go on.
We applaud and salute you, Allison Jones.
Yeah.
Here at SNL Nerds. And of course, they have Domhnall Gleeson as Henry Beard, the other co-creator of the National Lampoon. Domhnall Gleeson, you probably know, of course, from Star Wars. Who else?
We had a lot of today's comedy actors playing the comedy actors of yesteryear. We have Matt Walsh as Matty Simmons, who was the publisher of the National Lampoon, who unfortunately just in the last week or two just passed away.
Right. Yeah. R.I.P.
Very sorry to hear that. We have Thomas Lennon from The State and Reno 911 as Michael O'Donoghue, who was a writer for National Lampoon and also one of the original writers for SNL.
Yeah, dude, he was a great Michael O'Donoghue. Like, that's the thing about the casting. Like, the people that they chose for each person they were playing, they look enough like them to pull it off, but they're able to like sort of capture that person's kind of essence and spirit, like they're that kind of crazy rebel, insane spirit that person inhabited. Which
let's see. We had Matt Lucas as Tony Hendra, who was another Lampoon writer. If you've seen This Is Spinal Tap, which we've covered on this podcast in the past, Tony Hendra, the real life Tony Hendra, played Spinal Tap's manager.
I don't think we've talked about Spinal Tap on this podcast, have we?
No, we did an episode on Spinal Tap.
We did?
Didn't we?
I don't think so.
God, now you're going to make me go through.
Are you?
Okay, you read through some more people, and I'm going to prove to you that we did Spinal Tap.
Dude, all right, one of us is losing it. I'm pretty sure we never done an episode on Spinal Tap. If we did, I'll apologies, but I'm pretty sure we didn't.
Okay. I'm looking. Read some more names.
Okay, we got Natasha Lyonne from American Pie fame and Orange Is the New Black, and Russian Doll played Ann Beats, the lone female writer on the Lampoon.
And also a writer on SNL.
Yes, absolutely. Neil Casey as Brian McConaughey. I think that's his name. Who else we got here? There's what else yeah. I mean, those were the main writers, and then they talk about how they had other writers, but didn't have time to kind of talk about them. They just focused on these four.
And by the way, Neil Casey also wrote for SNL, so we have an SNL writer playing another SNL writer in this movie.
Dude, meta.
Yeah. And by the way, yeah, you're right. We have not done Spinal Tap. I thought we had. We've probably gone on a Spinal Tap tangent, and that's what I was thinking of.
That's right. See, that's what I thought. Maybe we'll do a Spinal Tap episode in the future. There's
It's got several cast members, but anyway, we're doing a few little stupid guests.
Sorry. I'm talking about other episodes we might do while I'm doing an episode.
Yeah.
Tom Snyder is on it, played by Ed Helms. One of the best casting I thought was Joel McHale as Chevy Chase. Now, I mean, those two are they're cut from the same cloth comedically. They kind of look like each other. They both have the same the butt chin, the dimple in the chin. I mean, and they were both on Community. That's perfect casting.
So I mean, if you think about it, Joel McHale, he did like 4 years of research for this for this part of working with Chevy Chase every day, and he does a very nice job of embodying a young, smartass Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
We had, let's see, you mentioned Ed Helms as Tom Snyder. We had John Daly as Bill Murray, Seth Green as Christopher Guest, John Gemberling as John Belushi, Rick Glassman as Harold Ramis. Oh gosh, who else? Max Greenfield as Chris Miller, another writer on the Lampoon and Animal House. We have Armin Weitzman as Lorne Michaels.
Yeah. Lonnie Ross as Ivan Reitman. This is a pretty stacked deck.
Yeah. Oh, and Paul Scheer has basically a cameo role as Paul Schaefer, that was also very cool. But this movie is something else in terms of the casting. There's somebody you love who pops up in practically every scene.
Right. All right. So as far as the lead man, the man of the hour, the Doug Kenny, like, what did you know about him? Like, was he just like a mythical figure in your mind, or did you know like all his backstory, or like what did this movie kind of, what did it mean for you? I guess
I knew the basics about him. I knew that he was that he played the part of Stork in Animal House, the guy who says, well, what the hell are we supposed to do, you moron? And he was a co-writer of the movie, and I later found out, kind of through just being a comedy nerd osmosis, that he was a big writer and co-founder of the National Lampoon. Now, the National Lampoon was really kind of before my time, because its heyday was in the mid 70s, and I was just a wee lad. So even though the National Lampoon was still around when I was a kid, it wasn't quite what it once was. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah,
it wasn't the cultural force that it had been.
Right. Yeah, I think like around the time I came around, I was more into Mad Magazine and whatnot, and by that time, the Lampoon was kind of on the downslide.
Yeah, and as I say in an early sequence in the movie, when they're the character Henry Beard and the character of Doug Kenny, they're going around, they're trying to sell investors on the idea of this magazine. They say, like, this is between Mad Magazine and the New Yorker, which is a nice way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was aimed at the people in the high school and college years who are looking for an irreverent humor magazine, but not ready for the maturity of the New Yorker.
Yeah, so not that classy just yet, but still not that mature.
Yeah. But so those are the basics on Doug Kenny and the movie. Should we just dive into the movie and go through it?
Sure. I love the way the movie opened with a quote from Doug Kenny saying, "These last few days are among the happiest I've ever ignored." Yes.
It
says a lot.
Yeah, and that's a quote that comes back late in the movie, and you find out the full context of that. And we have an opening. We see Doug Kenny as a young lad, and he's riding in the back of a car, and he passes by this group of cheerleaders who are practicing, all in uniform. And this right there, that's kind of a callback to, or a reference to, National Lampoon, because the National Lampoon, they published a high school yearbook parody that had cheerleaders on the cover, and it's kind of an infamous cover. Is like the cheerleaders they're spinning, their skirts are flying up, and then we see that one of them is not wearing anything under the skirt. We just see her bare ass on the cover.
Hey now.
Yeah. So right there we have like an Easter egg, just like a few seconds in.
Yeah, right off the rip, and it shows them going to a funeral. Somebody passed away. Young Doug Kenny's in the back seat. Mom and Dad are upset, crying. They pull over. They get out. The father says, "Well, the father says, well, that kid can stay in the backseat for all I care if he's not coming out." And then, but then the kid says to the camera, do we really want to start here? And then it cuts to Martin Mull, who plays an older version of Doug Kenny, if he had lived, which it's a little bit of a jarring narrative device that they use. And like it has Martin Mull kind of talking off camera to the director, and we hear David Wayne's voice talking to him, saying, "Hey, can we start somewhere else? Should we want to start?"
Yeah.
with this, and then it's Martin introduces himself as I'm Doug Kenny. I changed I changed I was the voice of a comedy generation, basically.
Yeah, yeah, and it's an interesting device. And if you don't know the story of Doug Kenny, and you don't know that Doug Kenny passed away at a relatively early age, he passed away in his early 30s. You're aware of what an artificial device this is, but if you aren't aware of who Doug Kenny is, this will really hit you hard late in the film.
Yeah.
so it's interesting, and it's irreverent, and we'll cover that more in depth later. I should also say we didn't mention these two when we were talking about the cast. Two more people who are in the cast playing Doug Kenny's parents, Stephanie and Harry Kenny, are Annette O'Toole and Harry Grainer, or Greener. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, but yeah, but they're both great.
Yeah, I recognized the father before. It's like, oh, it's that guy. I've seen him before.
Yeah, you've seen him in a million things. He was in. I first saw him on that Judd Hirsch sitcom, Dear John. He's guest starred on Star Trek: The Next Generation, and he's been in a million things. He's one of those. Hey, it's that guy.
He was in Buffy. He was the mayor. Oh, okay. Now I get it.
Yeah, see, there you go. There you go.
Martin Mull, who plays the older Doug Kenny, he's our narrator throughout this movie, and it was a very interesting choice, I thought, because, like, I mean, if done the wrong way, it could have come across as maybe a little tasteless or a little inappropriate, kind of like maybe like Wired, like the John Belushi biopic we talked about. But no, the way it was done, it really didn't come across like that at all, which I appreciate.
Yeah. It works very well. He's credited on IMDb as Modern Doug, which is nice. Yeah, so it's like Doug Kenny, if he had lived to that age, what he might say if he was looking back on his life, and it is a nice irreverent sort of device. Yeah. And Modern Doug, he says, let's start the film at Harvard because that's where the fun stuff was. And so we flash back to 1964, or I guess in this case, flash forward to 1964, to a freshman mixer at Harvard where Doug Kenny meets Henry Beard. And those two come together.
Yeah. Basically, the two of them meet, and they see that they have these, like, the name tags. Henry Beard had a name tag that said Jesus Christ. No, not that one. Right. Which made me chuckle. And Doug just has a name tag with a drawing of a penis on it. And it's dude, it's just that little thing where when you meet somebody who has the same type of humor you do, like that's a magical moment.
Yeah. These two have an instant bond, and within moments of meeting each other in this movie, they start a food fight with the snobs, who are basically like the Omegas in Animal House.
Yeah.
And then that cuts to 4 years later when they're getting ready to graduate from Harvard. They've taken over the Harvard Lampoon, the humor magazine, but they say it was the college's humor magazine, but it was mostly just an excuse to party.
Right. Exactly. Hook up and drink, like, college.
Yeah. And at this party, we see Doug. He introduces himself to a pretty girl at the party by the name of Alex, Alex Garcia Mata, who will become Doug's first wife, or I guess only wife. I don't know if he ever married the second woman in this movie. I'm jumping ahead.
Okay, yeah, dude, let's take it back a notch. But yeah, and also during his time at Harvard, him and Henry wrote a book called Board of the Rings.
Mm-hmm. Which was a Lord of the Rings parody, which this was kind of one of the things that first made their names, and it was this bestseller. And and this is, of course, before the days of Lord of the Rings being a movie, or even that Ralph Bakshi animated version. This was back when it was just a big book.
Yeah, so, dude, imagine spending all your time writing an entire book that just makes fun of Lord of the Rings. That's dedication.
Yep. That is some impressive nerdery there.
Oh.
But they're getting ready to graduate, and then the question becomes like, well, what do you do after you graduate and you have to start your real life? Henry Beard, he gets accepted into law school. like apparently all the law schools he applies for. Doug doesn't apply anywhere. And we find out that his parents really don't care much for him during a phone call with him where he's explaining that he hasn't applied for any jobs or any grad school.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he more has problems with his dad than he does his mom. It seems like his mom kind of goes easy on him a little bit, but his dad is like, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with your life? You're a screw up. But he doesn't say you're a screw up, but he's definitely harder on Doug than the mom.
He all but says you're a screw up. I mean, it's like you've got to get your life going. You've got to get your shit together. And he asks them each over the phone, "Oh, have you read the book?" And she has to like go find it and wherever it was buried unread. And she's like, "Oh yes, it's very nice. I like the cover." And it's just abundantly clear that neither one of them has bothered to read their son's book that he's put all this work into.
Yeah.
And ultimately his father says, "Do you want to keep doing your jokes your whole life?" And that's the moment where Doug gets the inspiration. He's like, "Hey, let's keep doing jokes our whole life. Let's keep doing the lampoon."
Right, and he, I guess he wants Henry to be in on it, and Henry takes a lot of convincing, and is like, I don't know, like I got accepted into all these law schools. This thing doesn't seem sketchy to me. But then, like after a while, Doug talks him into it, and I think Doug said at one point, "Look, it'll be fun, and the day it stops being fun, we'll walk away." Right.
That's the pact that they make. And Henry Beard, apparently this was a trait of the real life Henry Beard. He would just go, tempting. And that would be something he would say both when he really liked an idea or when he really disliked an idea. So he was a very tough guy to read. Domhnall Gleeson plays him as a very deadpan kind of guy. So very, very tough guy to read emotionally.
Yeah, like very kind of like Egon from the Ghostbusters-ish.
Yes, very much.
Yeah, and he also like he had that pipe all the time, like that old man pipe, which that's a nice touch.
Yes, because that's how you know he's an intellectual. So Doug and Henry, they go to New York City. They try to shop the magazine around to sell it to people, and we see some prospective investors. And one of the first ones we see is Mark Metcalf from Animal House. Niedermeyer, his own self.
Yeah, Niedermeyer, they got him in there. How about that?
Yeah, so it's just considering that National Lampoon produced the movie Animal House, it's a neat kind of irony to have Mark Metcalf in there as a guy who doesn't really want to get behind National Lampoon. And at one point he asks the guys, "What do you want to do with your life?" Which is the line that Mark Metcalf said in the Twisted Sister music video.
I want to rock!
Yeah. And we see during another one of these meetings when they're going to some other investors played by Mitch Hurwitz from Arrested Development and David Krumholtz, the great character actor David Krumholtz. And we find out that Doug doesn't have good people skills.
Yeah, that's the thing about Doug throughout the whole movie. I don't know. So, like, he's constantly like kind of joking. Like everything he says is a punchline. Everything he says is like he doesn't take life seriously. That much.
And he can't ever turn it off. He never gets serious and he never gets real with anybody. And when these two guys aren't enthusiastic about his idea, he gets angry and starts making fun of them, and he ruins the meeting. And these are two guys that maybe they could have been persuaded. Who knows? Yeah,
but he's just very headstrong about like, no, we need this. I want this magazine to be just like he's very he's very stubborn man, and he's just constantly making jokes and whatnot. But that's which is why he has Henry Beard to sort of bounce him out a little bit.
Yeah, we do see that these two are good friends, and they do balance each other's traits out nicely. So Doug and Henry, they meet with Maddie Simmons, who is the publisher of Weight Watchers magazine, and he's like, "Hey guys, I know comedy. I used to write one-liners for Walter Winchell, so
nice."
And by this point, they've gotten very used to the rejection. And when Maddie Simmons says, "Hey guys, I'm not going to waste your time," most magazines fail within the first year, and they realize like, "Oh, this guy wants to buy it. This is amazing."
Yeah, they got a bite. The last guy that they talked to. Yeah.
So I mean, and they were pretty much on their last legs at this point. So they've they've got a magazine. They've licensed the name Lampoon from Harvard, and they're going to call it the National Lampoon. And so they moved to New York City. Doug marries Alex, his girlfriend Alex, from Harvard, and the two of them are rooming with Henry.
Yeah, and Alex didn't know until she got there. It's like, wait, what's he doing here?
Yeah. That's how she finds out. Probably not how she really found out in life, but it's a movie. You got to take some dramatic license. It's funnier to see him just already be living there.
Absolutely.
And they make a deal with Maddie Simmons that in 5 years, Maddie has to buy out their share of the magazine.
Yes, Maddie Simmons, played by the great Matt Walsh.
Yes. So they get going. They've got 8 weeks to start a magazine. They hire a secretary. I'm calling her a secretary because it's the early 70s, and that's still what they called them then. Yeah. They hire a secretary who they call Mary Marshmallow because she's a very voluptuous woman.
Yes,
and we see a funny scene where Mary's in there. She and Doug are flirty with each other, and then she walks out of the office, and we see Martin Mull as modern Doug, and he hits on her, and she just gives him the finger and walks off.
There's a lot of fourth wall breaking throughout this, where like as soon as it looks like it constantly reminds you that it's just a movie. Like Martin Mull will pop in as a narrator, then he'll interact with somebody in the movie, then he'll pop back out, or sometimes he's seen by the people in the movie, sometimes he's not. So it's constantly like fourth wall breaking.
Yeah, it's neat, and you just have to roll with it. So Doug hires these hippie art directors, and he goes, "They're cool. They know our Crumb." Which, by the way, if you like biopics, check out Crumb. If you haven't seen Crumb, that's a great movie.
Yeah. And also
that's a documentary, not a biopic. But anyway.
Also, the art directors, I believe, are played by Michael Colton and John Abood, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, hey, that's cool. The screenwriters and also producers of the movie. That's very cool. They got a cameo.
And also they did this one thing that I liked when they hired all the writers. Michael O'Donoghue, Tony Hendra, Ann Beats, Brian. Like there's this one point where the narrator, modern Doug, he comes up and he talks about all these people they hired. Then they have a black couple coming up to him saying, "Oh, so there weren't any funny black people you could have hired or women?" And then modern.
And these two are credited on IMDb as Skeptical Black Man and Skeptical Black Woman. And Skeptical Black Man is played by Chris Redd.
Hey, how about that? And and it has modern Doug saying, I'm sure there were funny black people, but we just didn't think to look for any. Just a different time, and But to our credit, there weren't too many Jewish writers either.
And I like that. I like that they at least acknowledge the question.
Right.
And they don't make a meal out of it because the movie's not about that. It's about the people who were there. But it's nice that they acknowledge, like, hey, this magazine was started by hippies who were left wing and enlightened for the time and all that. But there was still further that they could have gone.
Right. I think it was their way of sort of answering any, maybe some negative feedback that the movie might have gotten, or like people would have tweeted at them or something. It's a way of getting ahead of the, trolls, and people would have been, giving them
and they also say after this montage that introduces all the writers, they were like, and there were a bunch of other people who wrote for National Lampoon, but we only need this many for the movie. So sorry, the rest of you. And then all these other extras walk off.
Right.
And other National Lampoon writers included like very notable people like John Hughes, who went on to do the Vacation movie that National Lampoon did, and 16 Candles and The Breakfast Club and all that. So, yeah.
I've heard of him, John Hughes. He sounds familiar.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Well, no, I just thought it was a good way to sort of get ahead of, like, because I guess with the thing with like biopics or anything like this, there's always people, saying things like, "Oh, well, that's not how it happened," or actually, it was actually like this, but they did that. Like, so I appreciate that they did that, and also we'll probably talk about it later when they do the rolling credits of the stuff they left out and the stuff they changed throughout the movie.
Yeah. They actually have a list of almost all the artistic licenses they took over the course of this movie, and we'll read that a little later, maybe when it comes up in the movie, or maybe at the end. I don't know. But they talk about how the magazine just sort of evolved and the growing pains that you have in any kind of new venture. We ultimately Doug fires the original art directors because they say, hey, the art it isn't funny, it just looks funny, and that doesn't really work with the humor of the magazine. And they bring in another art director who does the art straightforward and deadpan, so it's not fighting the joke.
Yeah.
And then that's a real interesting insight.
Yeah, that's a smart move.
Yeah, and it definitely is funnier. And then they have a montage of as the magazine starts growing in popularity. We see a montage of Matty Simmons like storming out of his office about the latest people that they pissed off. He's like, "We're being sued by Disney for $8 million." And they're like, "Oh well, yeah, we had Minnie Mouse flashing her tits on the cover."
Yeah, apparently you can't do that.
Yeah, Volkswagen sues them for $30 million for an ad, and this was a real ad that ran in National Lampoon, or a real parody ad, I should say, where if Ted Kennedy drove a Volkswagen, he could be president right now.
Jesus Christ!
Which dark,
so dark.
And we had Liza Minnelli is pissed off at him for some reason. The American Nazi Party, and then they're like, "Oh wait, that's okay."
Yeah, the humor of this magazine, like it goes places. Like it goes places I'm positive you couldn't go today.
Yeah, very irreverent, and pretty fearless in what they did. It seems.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's the one with the iconic now cover where they hold a gun to a dog's head and saying like, "Oh, if you don't buy this magazine, we'll shoot this dog." Like, there's no way you could do that today.
That was like their best-selling issue, from what I understand, and it's one of the most popular and most effective covers in magazine history.
I mean, good God.
So they're attracting all this controversy, but they're also growing in popularity. I mean, people are responding to what the magazine is putting out there, and it grows in popularity, so they get more advertisers. We see that they have another feature called Photo Funnies, which is just basically a one-page gag strip, usually of somebody talking with like a topless woman in there.
Yeah, because boobs.
Yeah, because boobs. They enjoyed putting boobs in there, and I'm sure that helped sell the magazine. Maybe you couldn't get your hands on a Playboy, but you could get your hands on a National Lampoon, and they show like a young lad looking at the Photo Funnies page, and then he just gets up to excuse himself to go into the bathroom with the magazine.
Welcome to manhood.
Yep. And we've got and they're working very hard around the clock to put out this magazine. Doug's spending all these late nights in the office. There's a scene where Henry finds Doug asleep at his desk in front of a typewriter with a lit cigarette in his mouth, which I believe was a true story.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's dangerous as hell.
Yes.
But yeah, and as they become more and more popular, Doug stays in the office more, and he neglects his wife more. Like his wife is home waiting for him.
As you do.
As you do.
And we see Doug as a guest on the Tom Snyder show with Ed Helms playing Tom Snyder. Doing a great Tom Snyder, by the way.
Yeah, not too shabby.
Yeah. I mean, he's not as exaggerated as like Dan Aykroyd's Tom Snyder, but a really good Tom Snyder. And you again see just like Doug's irreverent nature just can piss off the people around him.
That was a good. Maybe we'll get into it, but like I loved what he said about that. It was pretty funny.
Well, let's get into it. We're at that scene. Let's.
Oh yeah, maybe we should do that. Let me see if I can find it. But hold on.
Did I skip ahead of where you were in your notes?
No. You're A-okay.
Okay. Well, I mean, Tom Snyder at one point, he's like, well, you have this one thing in this current issue that we can't show on TV. And then Doug just holds up the centerfold, which is a naked black woman who's just there, and she's got this huge merkin on, I guess you should say. And he's like, "Oh, what? What's the problem? Is that can we not show that?"
Yeah, I was like, wow. And so then what happened? The line I liked during this interview was Tom Snyder saying, "Oh, Mr. Kenny, it's a fine line between being clever and offensive, isn't it?" Then Doug says, "Look, can I just say something in defense of the National Lampoon for one moment?" Tom says, "Please." Doug says, "We come from a tradition of truth tellers. A long time ago, there was someone else society found offensive. They thought that what he did was radical, dangerous. They persecuted him and eventually killed him. Of course, I'm referring to Dracula." I don't. And the way he just like does it, Will Forte. That's the thing about Will Forte. He can say like the most ridiculous thing and do it in such a deadpan manner and just never crack a smile or anything. Mm-hmm. And that just makes it all the more funnier.
Yeah, it's great. It's really funny stuff, and it's all the funnier because of the deadpan way that Will Forte delivers. I really enjoyed his performance in this movie. But the magazine is getting more successful, and then they say like, "Hey, let's expand to another medium. Let's do a National Lampoon radio show." And Henry Beard is like, "We can barely put out a magazine," and Doug is like, "Well, let's barely be able to do something else."
He just wants to take on more and more things. It's pretty bonkers.
And Henry, he tries to kind of call Doug on his shit. And he's like, "Look, you made our secretary, Mary Marshmallow, a managing editor, and you wrote a piece called Marshmallows about how you have sex with her." And he's like, "Are you having an affair with her?" And he's like, "Well, yeah."
Oh, dear.
But that's beside the point. Yeah. So this, of course, is going to come back and bite Doug in the ass later. But we see the National Lampoon radio show starting. We're in around 1973 now, and it stars all these future comedy stars. We got Bill Murray, we got Gilda Radner, we got Christopher Guest. Seth Green was playing Christopher Guest. I don't know if we mentioned that before.
Right, he looks like him too. It's eerie.
Yeah. I never would have thought of Seth Green as Christopher Guest, but he makes a really good young Christopher Guest. We have John Belushi, we have Harold Ramis, and we have Joel McHale as Chevy Chase. Ooh. And at this point, Martin Mull comes on and he's like, "Okay, look, these actors we hired, they don't all look like the real people, but we had to change things from real life. And do you think that I looked like Will Forte when I was 27 years old? Do you think Will Forte is 27 years old?"
And I love the way that this movie just constantly kind of called itself out on, like the movie, people know you have to like suspend disbelief a little bit when watching a movie. But then this movie kind of called itself out on that, where it's just like, yeah, we know this is this and that's that. Whatever you're going to tweet or comment online saying, "Oh, this was lame" or blah, blah, blah. We know what you're going to say. And that's why we're putting it all in the movie before you get a chance to say it.
Yeah. And it's also fun that when Martin Mull says, "Hey, do you think Will Forte is 27 years old?" You see Will Forte react in the background. He like just looks up from the sound booth he's in.
It's like, hey.
Yeah. He was like, "Uncalled for, Martin Mull." Uncalled for.
Martin Mull, I thought we were friends.
Yeah. But so the Lampoon train just keeps on rolling, and we see and eventually Doug's affair with Mary Marshmallow is discovered, and Alex walks in on him sleeping with her in the office. And this I thought was an amazing sequence. They did that in the form of one of the National Lampoon's photo funny strips. So it's just in still photographs with word balloons over their heads.
Yeah, I really liked the way they did this. I thought it was a really interesting choice.
Yeah, I loved it. And it starts out like a photo funny strip in the format where it starts out humorous and lascivious, and then it takes a turn on the dime and it gets serious as soon as his wife Alex walks in. And then you just see him sitting on the couch and he's like, "I don't think I ever wanted to be married."
Like, oh.
And then it just cuts to a final panel of him just sleeping alone on the couch in his office. And wow.
It's
I mean, that blew me away.
it's one of the more powerful scenes in this movie, I'd say.
I thought so. I thought that was a really offbeat choice that worked really well. And I loved them using the format of the Lampoon to tell the story of one of the founders of the Lampoon. That was really clever.
Yeah, that's a great choice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now we see, now that his marriage is over, we see Doug Kenny kind of dive more and more into his work, and then they start, now that the radio show is taking off and the magazine is taking off, now they're starting to do a live show that's also very successful. So now he's a part of the radio show, the magazine, and the live show, and he's just burning the candle at both ends at this point, just like doing all types of drugs to stay up and stay like the fun party guy, and also getting a magazine done on time and a radio show and a live show. He's just overworked. Right. It's getting to him.
The live show, by the way, was the Lemmings, and that also had a lot of people who went on to do SNL, like John Belushi, Gilda Radner, Chevy Chase. I can't remember if Bill Murray was part of it, but a lot of the people who were involved with the radio show were also part of the Lemmings.
Right.
And we see Doug. He's like he's smoking dope to calm himself down. He's taking LSD for inspiration. And the success gets to him when we see him just walking through his life in a fog, with all these demands on him and his time. And he finally just leaves a note for Henry tucked into their phone at their apartment. Just leaves a note saying, "I'm going gonzo." And he just disappears from his regular life, and he goes to stay with their college friends, Peter and Lucy.
Yes, he goes off to Martha's Vineyard and hangs out with them for a bit. And, then he's able to sort of decompress and calm down for a little bit. But at the same time, he kind of left Henry hanging with the magazine to do all by himself until he comes back.
Yeah. And Peter and Lucy are played by Brad Morris and Carla Gallo, who I remember from Undeclared. That was a great sitcom.
Yeah, no, that was very underrated, that sitcom.
Yeah. So... And then we go back to the opening scene of the movie. We have a flashback to the brother's funeral, or what we find out is the funeral of Doug's brother, Daniel Kenny, who died of kidney failure.
Right.
And we just kind of find out that his brother was like the golden boy of the family, and he died at a young age. And his parents, it's a very Walk Hard, Dewey Cox sort of thing. The wrong kid died, and
always mentioning Dewey Cox. Always got to put in the Cox reference.
Yeah, I love the Cox. You gotta bring in the Cox wherever you can.
Tee hee hee.
Yes. So we find out about that, and we've got. And then we go back to what is the then current day of the National Lampoon. We see them dealing with a bomb threat, and we see Thomas Lennon as Michael O'Donoghue holding dynamite.
Yeah,
that somebody sent in, and
as you do.
That's a weird scene, but apparently I think had a basis in fact. I'm sure it was exaggerated for comedic purposes, but. And meanwhile, Martha's Vineyard, Doug he's starting to write a novel called Teenage Commies from Outer Space that he describes as Salinger meets Mark Twain on acid.
Cool. So it's a good sell. It's a good sell. Good pitch.
Sounds like an interesting book. And 6 months later, Doug finally comes back to the Lampoon after everything. And it seems, I mean, the ship has kind of kept sailing, but things have kind of really gone to hell since Doug disappeared. We got Michael O'Donoghue and Ann Beats are dating. He says Tony Hendris stole a sketch from Monty Python, and I think we're getting sued for them. And he says, and Maddie Simmons can't afford to buy us out next year, in strict violation of our contract. So,
oh boy,
yeah. So all sorts of shit's going on.
Yeah, it ain't going good.
Mm-hmm. And Doug, he tries to get back into work, get back into the grind of it, but he discovers he's kind of out of sync with the magazine after he returns. He suggests an idea for a feature, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, we already did that last month." So
so he's like I said, so he's kind of out of sync. There's a new guy with PJ
O'Rourke.
Yes,
yeah, who's another famous comedy person. He eventually took over the Lampoon, and he's written a lot of humorous political books. He of like a right wing bent, I believe.
Ooh,
yeah.
I didn't know.
So Doug's not doing so hot. So Henry recommends that he does he does a special project. By the way, Doug, he throws his book, his fully written book, into the trash after Henry doesn't respond to it enthusiastically.
Did anything happen? Wait, so that book just nothing ever happened with that? Like no one dug it?
Never saw the light of day. Never. Yep. Never published.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
So Henry recommends that Doug do a special project, which is a high school yearbook parody, which becomes one of the Lampoon's famous projects. They publish this as its own book in the format of a high school yearbook, and they really duplicate it. I picked up years ago. They came out with a 39th reunion edition of the yearbook that just reprinted it's in entirety, and it is something else. It introduces all these students at the beginning, and you kind of trace them through the year, and there's all sorts of subplots that they weave throughout it. It is something else.
Well, so it's like a yearbook / novel type of thing? Like there's a story within the yearbook?
Yeah, almost. Yeah, I would say. And it's interesting. It's that some of the character names that are in there pop up later in Animal House. Like there's a Larry Kroger in there. And by the way, did you spot the little cameo when they show the yearbook photo of Larry Kroger?
I did. I was going to say it, but I'll let you have the honors from that one.
No, go ahead.
Well, yeah. When they show there's one part where they show scenes of old high school yearbook photos, and then they say, "Oh, there's always in every school there's the pretty people, there's the dweebs, the outcast, the virgin, there's the overlooked black guy." And then there's the nobody. And the picture of the nobody is Larry Kroger. And the picture they used was the high school yearbook picture of Mr. Paul Rudd.
Yes. And, because, as we've established, Paul Rudd is immortal, it looks exactly like present-day Paul Rudd.
Yes, he'll outlive us all.
Yes. Paul Rudd is the Highlander.
Yes. There can be only one.
So that's neat. And Paul Rudd, of course, goes back with David Wayne since he's done stuff with him since Wet Hot American Summer at least, and he's appeared in Stella Shorts and all that. So they're old buddies.
Absolutely.
So that's a neat cameo. And then finally we're up to the end of the first 5 years of the National Lampoon, and as Maddie said before, he doesn't have the cash to buy them out. They're kind of a prisoner of their own success because Maddie would have to pay them. It was like a total of $7 million or something to buy out their shares in the magazine.
Oof.
But Doug, he throws a tantrum. He gets on Maddie Simmons' desk and he starts trashing the office. And so Maddie caves and he writes them their checks.
Yeah, and it's like, "Oh, you ruined us now. We got no money."
Yeah, and immediately after they get their checks, Henry Beard pulls out. He says, "We made this deal that if it stopped being fun, we would stop, and it has stopped being fun for me." And because he was left holding the bag when Doug had his breakdown and just disappeared for months on end, and he just says, "I'm tired of taking care of you." And then he walks out into the office and he says, "Good luck, fuck you, goodbye."
I kind of wish that was my high school yearbook quote after hearing that.
Yeah, that's that is an exit from a job. That is the way everybody fantasizes about leaving a job at some point, I think.
Oh, dude, my God. I mean, that's the way to go out. Like a true
That's
G.
the dream. That's the dream. Good luck. Fuck you. Goodbye. And Henry, disappears for a long stretch of the movie after this. This is the last we see of Henry for quite a while.
Yeah, and of course we see Doug. He's definitely broken up. He's actually more, which is something I noticed. Like he's way more broken up about this than he is when his wife left. Which I guess, I mean, that's a little thing that kind of goes throughout this whole movie, where it's not really about Doug's wives or his romantic relationships. It's more about this really strong friendship he had with this guy Henry Beard. It's like that's probably like the best relationship he's ever had, I guess, or the most meaningful.
Yeah, I mean they're like I've heard this term before. They're heterosexual life partners. So because that's more directly related to the comedy, I see why the movie puts the emphasis on that, even if that wasn't the case in real life. But Doug puts PJ O'Rourke in charge of the magazine. And he's kind of low because like his best friend is gone and everything's on his shoulders, and he's still got his problems with depression and self-hatred and all that. And but ultimately he meets a new woman. He meets a woman named Catherine at a bar.
Yes,
and he charms her against all reason, even though he like bites into a glass.
Yeah, that's insane. After that, she still was like, "Oh, that's cute. I'll stick around." Like, that doesn't scare you off as a woman?
Yeah. It was the 70s. That was being a psychopath was still charming.
It was a better time.
Yeah, no, but he literally picks up a wine glass and bites into it, and then he just goes like, "What? Do I have glass on my teeth?"
Yeah. We should also mention Catherine's played by Emmy Rossum from Shameless fame.
Yeah, and she's really good. I like her. She comes into the movie kind of late, but she does a really nice job with what she's got. But he charms her. We see them walking home from the bar, and there's a guy on the street who's just playing the song "Beautiful Dreamer." The beautiful dreamer. Da, 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 da. Yeah, I don't know the lyrics to "Beautiful Dreamer," but it's a very pretty song.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yes. And then they start having a relationship, and then they start hooking up, and it's he's getting back up there. He's getting back on the mend.
He's found love once again, and then we have a scene that the movie tells us takes place in August of 1975. We see Doug and his best friend Chevy Chase visiting his parents in the house that Doug bought for them with the money that he's gotten from the Lampoon, and he's like, "Hey, Dad, I know that." You said you had trouble mowing such a big lawn, so I brought some goats to to eat the grass for you.
Yeah.
Which, apparently, that is a thing that the real life Doug Kenny did.
Yeah, we've said Doug is never serious throughout this movie at all. Everything's a joke to him, but I gotta admit that is getting goats is pretty damn funny. I'll admit that.
That is funny. I'm sure it is horrifying if it happens to you in life, but in the context of the movie, very funny. And we see, and Chevy, we see him inside with Doug's parents, just one-on-one, and he's like, "Hey, you must be proud of your son. He's so successful." And Doug's father just goes off and he says, "You call this success publishing a dirty magazine, making fun of the president? What is there to be proud of?" And we see the camera pulls back, and then we see that Doug has walked in and heard his father saying that about him, and it's just, oh.
Yeah, it's like, dude, he bought you a house. Just fucking have a little gratitude, you old coot.
But it's, the sad thing is that no matter how successful Doug is, it seems like nothing he ever does will please his parents or make his parents happy.
Ugh. Gah.
But then we skip ahead about a month to this new television show that Chevy Chase is on, and this is like September of 1975. It's some national television show. Let me see if I can get the name of this right. Saturday Night.
Oh.
It says here that it later became known as Saturday Night Live. Okay. I'm with you now. So
never heard of it. It's probably before my time.
I don't know. I am not familiar. I should check that show out sometime. I hear good things.
Sounds good. I like the title.
Yeah. You could abbreviate it, I bet.
Oh, like SNL or something?
I was thinking like SNL Nerds, but if you drop the word nerds, you could just call it SNL. That just seems very catchy and clean. And
I like it. I like it.
It's a good name. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we should get this Twitter handle before it gets taken.
I mean, can you imagine if that Twitter handle was taken by somebody,
Right?
and we had to settle for a Twitter handle like SNL Nerds Show?
Oh God, that's just ridiculous.
And what if like if it was like extra absurd and it was like the Twitter handle was taken by someone who has literally never tweeted under that account and has like no followers and follows no one?
Oh, dude, that's now you're just being silly.
And then like you report it to Twitter to see if like that account could possibly get shut down so you could get this handle that should be rightfully yours. You haven't heard back from Twitter like weeks after you've written them.
Right? Oh my God. Dude, this is like a comedy. You should be writing this down.
I know. It's so absurd. I mean, who would believe it, right?
This could be a sketch on that SNL thing you just mentioned thing.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, so yeah, let's keep talking about this SNL Saturday Night Live. You said
Saturday Night Live, yes, because they say it is on in the middle of the night on a Saturday, and it is a live program.
Huh? All right. I mean, it's I don't know. I don't know if that'll work, but all right.
I'm sure it's going to die a quick death. I mean, they can't be as successful as a National Lampoon. Come on.
Oh, no way.
But we cut to Doug and Catherine at home watching the first episode of SNL, and it's a nice reconstruction of the very first sketch from the very first show of Michael O'Donoghue and John Belushi doing the translator sketch where I would like to feed your fingertips to the Wolverines.
Yeah, it's a pretty good recreation, beat for beat.
Mm-hmm. And then, go ahead.
Well, no, yeah, Catherine, she likes it, but Doug looks at it with kind of disdain, saying, "Oh, like NBC actually approached Marty to come up with a show, and Marty said that they were too busy, so they didn't do it."
Maddie,
I'm sorry. Maddie said they didn't do it, so like now NBC kind of circumvented them and got the show on the air and took their people. Yeah. So he's looking at it like very like what the fuck type of thing.
Yeah. He's like SNL poached all our talent, and we had the chance to do this Lampoon TV show 8 months before, and Maddie turned them down.
Yeah.
So then we see Doug Kenny. He goes to an SNL after party, and Michael O'Donoghue and Ann Beats are both there. They at this time quit the Lampoon, and they're both writing for SNL. And Ann Beats says like, "Oh, it's fun. It's like the Lampoon used to be."
Oh.
So it's like, yeah, the time has kind of passed the Lampoon by.
Yeah.
And
I like how she's trying to cover up her tracks. Like, "Oh, don't listen to me. I'm drunk." How you get fucked up.
And she's like, and they worked a couple genuine Michael O'Donoghue quotes in there. He's like, it's like TV is like napalm for the masses. It blows up real good, but it sure makes a pretty glow, or something like that. And then Ann Beats goes like, "Oh, he's just pissed because they want him to write sketches for the Muppets." And this is another real Michael O'Donoghue quote. He just goes, "I don't write for felt."
It's a great line.
It's such a great line.
Great line.
When Michael O'Donoghue could hate something, he just hated it so purely. It was wonderful.
Oh, I don't write for felt.
But they're still glad to see Doug, and they're like, "Hey, Doug, you should come meet Lorne. Come meet Lorne Michaels. He's the guy who created the show." And we meet Lorne Michaels.
Yeah.
What was the name of the actor playing Lorne Michaels again? I have to look him up again.
Hold on, I'm on it.
Yeah. Armin Weitzman.
I was on it. Yeah,
that's okay. Beat you to it. But and he does a pretty nice young Lorne Michaels, and he's like, "Well, I feel like we share a sensibility." And Doug's like, "Yeah, and writers and a cast and." This movie, because the movie is presenting SNL and Lorne Michaels from Doug Kenny's point of view, it does not paint a positive light towards Lorne Michaels.
Yeah, he don't come out too great in this one.
Yeah, but Lorne makes a job offer to Doug, and Doug just resentfully turns it down. He's like, "I don't need a handout." He's just still very resentful.
Yeah,
because he feels like SNL poached everything that he came up with.
Yeah. It's like, "Oh, so you're going to take my stuff and offer me a job to work for you on my stuff." Like, Oh,
right. And Lauren is like, well, that's not quite it. We'd be working together. And he's like, but you'd be my boss. Uh, so, and you can really see where Doug Kinney's coming from here.
yeah, no, absolutely. He ain't wrong.
Yeah. Um, and so Doug decides to do his own thing, and he gets together um, with Harold Ramis, and they're like, let's do a National Lampoon movie, and they propose as we covered in our Animal House episode, they propose a movie called Laser Orgy Girls, which was about Charles Manson in high school.
Now that sounds like that's a movie.
I mean, that I cannot imagine a more commercial idea for a major motion picture than Charles Manson in high school.
I mean, come out and bring the kids.
But Maddie Simmons very sensibly says, hey, look, we got like one shot to make a movie. The most popular feature in our magazine is Chris Miller's College Stories, and we should expand that and make a college movie. That would be a good safe bet. And so they approach Chris Miller, who's played by Max Greenfield from New Girl, and what's his new show, The Neighborhood?
Yes,
he's been doing it for a couple of years with is it Cedric the Entertainer?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I am remembering that correctly. I haven't watched much of that show, but I'm aware of it. It exists, and they also bring in Ivan Reitman, played by Lonnie Ross, who you probably know him from 30 Rock. He was one of the cast members on 30, like the cast members of TGS in 30 Rock.
Right.
Yes, and he looks a fair amount like young Ivan Reitman.
Yeah, definitely in the face. He's like a little skinnier, but like face wise, again, the casting on this thing is just
chef's kiss.
Oh, A plus.
Yeah. What was her name? Allison. Let's see. I almost got it.
We forgot it already.
Well, I'm bad with names. It's nothing personal. I remember the first name Allison, and I can't remember Allison Jones.
Yes.
Allison Jones. Allison Jones. Second shout out of the podcast.
Mrs. Jones and me.
So they're starting to make Animal House, and we see them shooting some of the iconic scenes from this iconic comedy, and this is the part where we've got a bit of an interesting story to tell.
What?
Yeah. So this morning we were getting ready to record the podcast, as we do, and we do our usual thing where we tweet and we're like, hey, do you have any questions, comments about the movie? And just on an impulse, I decided to tweet at David Wayne, director of this movie. And David Wayne actually responded.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. It's very cool. It's very, very cool. I was just like, hey, David Wayne, you got any cool trivia to share on your movie? And he actually responded. He responded to me and he said, what do you want to know? And he shared a short video, which was a breakdown of a particular shot in the movie, which is we see the cast of Animal House. They're all gathered outside the Delta House, and they're getting and they're all shooting out there. And the Delta House looks just like it does in the movie Animal House. I mean, it is amazing. It is dead on. You see this and you're just like, oh, well, they obviously went to Eugene, Oregon and found the original house and they just shot at that house. Oh, okay, that's cool. But no, that is not what they did.
Wow.
Because that house has been torn down.
I swear I had no idea this was all CGI till this tweet came out.
Yeah, this is CGI, and it shows the shot, and you see Martin Mull just walking into frame, and he's walking towards this big blue screen. And they CGI'd the house, the Animal House right in front, or right in the background of this shot. And I mean, like what they built, they basically just built some hedges and some stairs, and then they have some picnic tables out in front of it. And it is something. We're going to retweet this from the SNL Nerd Show account, and it is something else to see. And so thank you very much, David Wayne, for tweeting that at us, because we had no idea that was a VFX shot until you showed us that video.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, that is just seamless.
Wow.
And David Wayne, he also said we had minor CG Oh, I asked him, I said, was this the first time you worked with CGI in one of your films? And he said, we had minor CGI in various things over the years, but this was probably the most elaborate. So, so that was very cool of David Wayne. And he just responded to us just a few hours ago, which is very, very cool.
Look at us. We have the ears to Hollywood. So
yeah. We do. And he also showed how another effects shot was done with an effects video. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. Yeah, so this is fun. We see some of the famous scenes from Animal House being shot.
Well, we see like the food fight, but we also see one of the, I guess it was the producers kind of giving, kind of being upset with the movie about like, they're particularly talking about the one scene where the guys in the frat leave their dates in the all black club, and he's like, you can't have that in the movie. There'll be race riots, and that's Brad, played by Joe Latrulio of The State fame.
Of The State, who is so he was in The State with David Wayne, and you'd probably best know Joe Latrulio from playing. Oh God, I'm blanking on his character name. On Brooklyn Nine-Nine, he plays Andy Samberg's partner.
Hold on a moment.
It's okay. We'll move on. But yeah, he's objecting to the movie, and Charles, he plays Charles Boyle on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and so Animal House comes out, and it's this big hit movie. It comes out in July 1978, and we see them at the bar. They're all celebrating the success, and everybody's. And then we see Joe Latrulio come back as studio executive Brad, who's like, "Hey, I was never against the movie. I was behind you the whole way, buddy. What are we gonna do next?" I mean, he's just such a fair weather friend.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh yeah, whatever you want to do, man. It's great. You're great. Everything's great."
Yeah. And that's something that's really in Joe Latrulio's wheelhouse. Is he's very much he can play a sycophant really well.
That's a compliment, Joe.
It is a compliment, Joe. I actually met Joe Latrulio very briefly in real life, and he's a very nice person.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. But Doug, he decides that he's got this big successful movie under his belt. He's going to leave National Lampoon once and for all, and he's going to move to Hollywood. And he walks out of this bar, this nightclub, the Village Gate in New York City, and we see in one unbroken shot, he walks out of this nightclub in New York. And it's a night scene. And then he and his girlfriend, Catherine, they just turn and they start walking left of frame. And then it suddenly goes from night to day. And we see him walking right onto a studio lot. And this is one unbroken shot. I mean, it's amazing. You see this and it's just like, oh my God, this is great. But David Wayne, he tweeted a video to us that showed how they did this shot, and it's really we'll tweet this video out too.
He tweeted at us because we're personal close friends with him, so
we are personal close friends. Yeah, I actually David Wayne would not remember this. I met him once in life too at the same party where I once met Joe Latrulio, and I feel like such a creepy name dropper even saying that. But
I don't want to say anything, but yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I barely talked to David Wayne at this party, so don't think it was any big deal. But it was cool.
Yeah.
But it's a really neat shot. Like Will Forte, he just comes out, he takes off the shirt he's wearing. He's wearing like this Hawaiian shirt underneath, a short sleeve shirt, and it just literally goes from night to day, and it's really something to say. And it's best just see in the video to see how they did that.
Yeah, it's pretty legit. So now they're in LA. Chevy was out there with him, and this is where Doug starts to get his cocaine problem.
Chevy is out there with him, and cocaine is out there with him. Cocaine moved with him to California.
Apparently,
he probably bought a seat for cocaine on the plane when he was flying to California. Because that's just how important cocaine was in the late 70s, apparently.
Yeah, that didn't carry on. It needs its own seat.
Yeah. No, I mean, you pay all those thousands of dollars for cocaine. You're going to get cocaine its own airplane ticket.
Absolutely.
But and we see like a big party at Doug's place out in California, and And we see him at one point, he's calling his mom and he's like, "Hey mom, did they finish building the pool at your house? Does dad like it?" And we see that no matter what he does, his parents will just never be pleased, and they will never give him the love that he wants and that he obviously needs from them.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
It's a sad scene, and then later he gets sort of a wake up call. He goes back to the party after this call with his parents, and he discovers that he left his girlfriend Catherine waiting at the airport for 2 hours.
Yeah,
he was flying in that day.
Yeah, because I thought that was tomorrow. Well, this party's for you. Hey, it's a welcome home party.
Yeah, and here there's this woman. Her name is Missy, and she just goes, "My name's whatever you want it to be." And a little subtle in joke: she is dressed just like Cindy Morgan as Lacey Underhall in Caddyshack.
Hey now.
So she's wearing like the same sort of top that I believe the character Lacey Underhall is wearing when she's first introduced in that movie. So that's a neat little in joke there, a little Easter egg.
Yeah. So his girlfriend's visibly upset. They get into a fight, and I think she ends up throwing one of his mugs against the wall, spilling cocaine everywhere.
Yeah.
Cocaine is literally just everywhere. And
the mug, by the way, is a little Dwight Eisenhower mug, just like what Conan O'Brien keeps on his desk on the Conan show.
Yes, but his Dwight Eisenhower mug is filled with cocaine.
Yes. I would wager that Conan O'Brien's Eisenhower mug is probably not filled with cocaine.
No, it's just hot chocolate and comedy. I don't know.
Yes, hot chocolate, comedy, and just good vibes.
Yes,
because it's Conan O'Brien. Yeah, it's cool.
It's good times. All right. So, and during the fight, Doug just kind of he gets very upset and he leaves her and he begins writing because that's the thing he does. He's not. That's the thing that the movie kind of shows, that he's not very good at expressing himself if it's not through a joke. So when he gets upset, he just dives headfirst into his work. So he just begins writing the script, which of course ends up being Caddyshack.
And then we cut to the making of Caddyshack. And as Bill Murray puts it, John Daly as Bill Murray, he just says to the fellow playing his brother, Brian Doyle Murray, who is also a writer on Caddyshack, he says, "Harold's never directed, Doug's never produced, Rodney Dangerfield has never acted. What could possibly go wrong?"
And literally everybody on that set was on cocaine.
Yes.
So much cocaine.
So much cocaine. Cocaine should have gotten billing in the film. It should have gotten an airline ticket out to California. It needed a billing in Caddyshack. Cocaine did a lot of stuff in the last part of Doug Kenny's life.
At the very least, an EP credit.
Yeah. And and at one point, Doug, or I think it's modern Doug who says this, he says, "All I had to do was top Animal House and make the next biggest comedy of all time." So it is setting up Doug for a big time sophomore slump here.
Yeah, it is.
And we see Doug, he's having visions, and we see John Daly do a nice approximation of Bill Murray's Nick the Lounge Singer character from SNL. And we see playing Paul Schaefer, we have
Paul Scheer.
Paul Scheer. Yeah, Paul Scheer from the How Did This Get Made podcast and lots of other stuff. And he does a nice Paul Schaefer.
Yeah, he does. Again, casting.
Again, it's basically a bit part, and they could have gotten some no-name actor to play it, but no, they got Paul Scheer to play Paul Schaefer in this one scene, and the movie is so much better for it. It's again, thank you, David Wayne and Allison Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And in this vision, they're talking about how Doug has kind of let down everybody in his life. He's let down his dad. He's let down Henry. He drove away Alex. He'll probably drive away Catherine. And it's all of Doug's self-hatred and self-esteem issues coming out in this vision.
Yeah,
and
it's pretty rough, but funny.
It's pretty rough. Yeah. It finds a way to convey his depression and self-hatred in sort of a comedic way.
Right. And so as they're filming the movie and doing all the cocaine on the planet Earth, they have another visit from Brad about how they got the first cut was 4 hours long, and like
Yeah.
Brad's very concerned about like this whole thing, and that's when he comes up with the idea of, oh, we're putting this gopher in this movie, this gopher puppet. It's going to be in the movie because it's my money
Yeah.
and I want it.
Yeah, we want this mechanical gopher in the movie as much as possible. We had the people who worked on Star Wars work this up, and Doug is like, no, this isn't a kids movie. We don't want a mechanical gopher in this movie, because apparently Caddyshack was rather infamously recut by the studio to emphasize the movie is supposed to be about the caddies, and it's like supposed to be another sort of underdogs versus the rich snobs type of thing, like Animal House was. But the studio recut it, and they put more emphasis on some of the rich snobs, like the character that Chevy Chase played in the movie.
Right. I remember hearing about that, how like Doug and some of the other people were just dead set against this gopher being in it, but they didn't really have a say. And, the studio just wanted their way because it's their money.
And we see this fight between Brad, the studio exec, and Doug. It erupts into an actual fist fight, and it spills out of their bungalow on the Universal lot. And of course, it happens just as a tour guide is coming by. And then we have another interesting cameo in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, do you want to talk about the tour guide that we see?
Well, no, you can go ahead because I got to pull up the page. I didn't pull it up.
All right. The tour guide is played by Martha Smith, who is basically reprising her role of Babs from Animal House, who, if you remember Animal House, the end, it says she becomes a tour guide at Universal Studios in California. So she is there. She is leading this tour tram through, and she is doing her Babs Jensen voice. And she's like, and here's where the people who wrote Animal House work, and I'm sure they're coming up with a great new comedy. And then the fight spills out, and Doug Kenny starts physically beating Brad, the studio exec, with the gopher.
Yeah, ask for Babs.
Ask for Babs.
But yeah, so like because of that fight, he kind of Doug gets sidelined on his own film, and he's just not happy with it. But so
and go ahead.
Well, no. So then after that, they start doing after the film wraps, they do they go on a press run for the film. So they go to New York. Doug calls Henry saying, "Hey, I'll be in New York if you want to meet up at a bar and talk."
But there's something before the reunion with Henry. Is Doug? He sees another movie that came out.
Oh, right.
In 1980. He sees, and we see actual archive footage of this movie. We see the movie Airplane, and we see Leslie Nielsen say, "I am serious, and don't call me Shirley." And Doug, he sees this movie, and he's very depressed because he realized, like, this is the next thing in comedy. It's a paradigm shift, And he's depressed because, it's the great comedy of 1980, and he didn't write it.
Yeah, it sucks that that this comedy that you and I both love, it kind of caused this one guy to be bummed out. He wasn't. I guess he wasn't wrong, because it was just like, I don't know. He just saw that as, oh, that's the new thing. I'm on my way out. Like I'm a has-been already.
Yeah, and he, as you said before, he meets up with his old friend Henry Beard, for a drink in New York City. And there's some great dialogue between them, which just summarizes the problem. Henry, he's trying to build up his friend. He says, "You wrote the most successful comedy movie of all time on your first try." And then Doug just goes, "That was 2 years ago." Your heart just breaks for him, man.
It is. It really is like some insight, because to show like on the surface, everything he's done has been a success. He is a successful person, and I don't know. It's just weird, like how you can be somebody who's like done all these things, conquered all these mountains, and still just be miserable inside. Like, damn.
Yeah, and it really shows that. No matter how successful you are, if you have that propensity for depression or self-hatred or whatever, that never really leaves you. That is always there. And especially if you're taking drugs or if you're drinking or doing drugs or whatever, that's not going to help.
Yeah, you're just,
or it might help short term, but it is not going to help in the long run. It is just going to increase what is already there inside you.
Yeah, like you just be miserable, but with more toys and more stuff around you.
Yeah.
Oof.
And he finds out that Henry, in the time that they've been apart, Henry's just found some happiness. He's met a lady. He's with a girlfriend who has a child of her own. And Doug is just amazed. He's like, "You have a family," and Henry goes, "Yeah, it's actually easier than running a magazine." Which it's a great scene between the two of them, man.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, yeah. And Henry, he can tell that Doug is kind of spiraling, and he's like, "Doug, you can call me anytime, right?" And Doug, he doesn't quite hear it. He goes off to this press event for Caddyshack at Dangerfield, at Rodney Dangerfield's comedy club, Dangerfields.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so there's this press junket at Dangerfield. They're all waiting for Doug to get there, but he's running incredibly late. So they're like, all right, I guess we'll start without him. So they begin the press junket tour, and then Doug kind of crashes in, and he makes a big scene. He says, "This movie's shit. Like, this movie is garbage. I hate all of it." And,
Yeah.
he makes it's quite a spectacle. He makes.
It is, yeah, it is a spectacle. He is drunk and disorderly and probably stoned as well. And he discovers, like, in the middle of this rant, he's like, that his parents are actually there. He turns and he sees his parents and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And they're like, "You begged us to come." And Doug is just so far gone, he doesn't even remember this.
Yeah, and it's like his mom looks at him just like with just very concerned look on her face, and the dad can't even look him in the eye. So it gets it gets very uncomfortable very quick.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just like, oh, geez, he is really in a bad way. So, Chevy Chase, being a good friend to Doug, or as good a friend as he was capable of being, he takes Doug out to Hawaii, and they go out to Hawaii, and they just decompress from everything, and they spend 6 days, and they're totally clean.
Yes,
and then they're getting bored out of their minds, so they have cocaine shipped to them.
Yes, and tennis balls.
In tennis balls, yeah. They're just like out by the pool, and they're just like, "I'm bored as hell. Are you?" And there's like, "Yeah, I'll call my guy." And they get presumably the next day get cocaine shipped to them in tennis balls, which if that's real, that is clever as hell.
I mean, I'm pretty sure TSA is on to you right nowadays, but still.
Probably. If you're putting your drug shipping methods into a Netflix movie, I hope the TSA would pick up on it.
But, yeah. I don't know. Drug dealers, tell us how you shipping your drugs these days.
Yeah, drug dealers, call in. Tell us, how are you shipping your drugs these days?
Yeah.
We're curious. We want to know.
FedEx? Is it, what is it?
Yeah. What do you do?
Airborne Express? You use Messenger? What's the haps?
Yeah, but we see Doug and Chevy, and they're reading bad reviews from Caddyshack, and it was not a good reviewed movie in its time. It is much more appreciated now, but it was not well reviewed when it first came out.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, it's like what we were saying a couple weeks ago with the Lonely Island movie Hot Rod, which that wasn't terribly well reviewed or appreciated when it came out, but it's more of a cult thing now, and there's a huge cult with Caddyshack now. Yeah,
I remember like another film like The Big Lebowski. When I remember when it came out, it didn't do well, but like now there's like a whole fucking shrine to it, and people pray at it.
They have conventions for it. It's something else.
Yeah.
And then Alex shows up, or excuse me, not Alex, Catherine. I wrote down Alex because I was getting the wives and girlfriends mixed up. Sorry about that. Catherine shows up, and Chevy left the night before. And again, this is presented from Doug's point of view. So you're as disoriented as an audience member as Doug is, the character of Doug is in the movie, because he's just losing all track of time because he's just spending all his days drunk, stoned, and depressed.
Right. Drunk, stoned, brilliant.
Drunk, stoned, brilliant, and they're unfortunately gearing up for death.
Oh boy.
So Catherine leaves, and she encourages Doug to call Henry, and just unfortunately, everyone just kind of leaves Doug because they have to get back to their regular lives. I think in real life, Chevy Chase had to go back for to be shooting a movie or something like that. He had some other commitment that he had to get to, and so Doug is just by himself in Hawaii.
Right, right. And then at this point, he's he's just kind of getting himself together mentally, and then he says,
Mhm.
"Oh, you know what? I think I'll go take a hike." And then
Yeah,
then they show him driving up to this sort of mountain part in Hawaii, and he just goes on a hike. And at one point, they show him kind of looking, over some mountains, and he kind of
right.
he takes off his glasses just to look at the
Mhm.
mountains be more blurry. And
And let me just back up a little bit because this is going back to something we saw at the very beginning of the movie. We see him writing in a yellow lined notebook. He writes the quote that the movie started with: "These last few days are among the happiest I've ever ignored."
wow, it's a powerful line.
Which, yeah, and that is something that they found in Doug Kinney's notebook after he passed away.
Right, right. So then after that, he goes up to the mountain. He kind of looks at the mountain range, and then they cut to Henry Beard, entertaining some friends at
Mhm.
his house. He gets a call, and we
Yeah,
see something's happened because his
yeah,
face just kind of drops. And then they cut to Doug's glasses and sneakers on the cliff, and
yeah.
then they
Just sitting there on the mountaintop.
and then they cut to like a basically Doug's funeral because he passed away.
Yeah, yeah. And I thought this was a pretty good way to address it because there is some question about how exactly Doug Kenny died. It is still not really known if he was depressed and he committed suicide or if he accidentally fell while he was hiking. And people don't know. And there's a famous quote from Harold Ramis that Harold Ramis says in this movie. He says, "Doug probably fell while he was looking for a place to jump."
Which is so dark but so funny.
So dark, so very darkly funny, and probably sadly accurate.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
So then what happens? We go into the funeral for Doug,
hmm
um, and then actually something very interesting happens where, as we go through all the people who's worked with Doug and known Doug, all the people we've been introduced to throughout the entire movie, we see that Doug is standing there in his suit, alive, looking at all the people, and then
right.
modern Doug, Martin Mull, walks up to him,
Yeah,
saying, "Hey, Doug."
yeah. They start talking to each other, and he's like, "Oh, who are you?" And modern Doug explains, "Well, I'm you. I'm what you would have been if you'd lived." And and then young Doug just goes, "Oh, so you're." And then modern Doug finishes the sentence. He says, "I'm a narrative device." And Doug Kenny he immediately reacts as a writer. He just goes, "Oh, that's a choice."
I love
um, it's a neat subtle moment, but I just really like that his first reaction wasn't like me freaking out. It's just like he reacts as a writer. He's like, "Oh, that's a choice." He's just um, and yeah, and we see Doug, and he sees his parents standing over his casket, and
yeah.
they're so distraught because they've outlived both of their kids now, and he just says, "Now you two have a match set." Which,
Oh, gee.
ooh,
There's so many uncomfortable jokes throughout this whole movie.
there is. I mean, this gets dark, but comedy writers, they get dark, man. And we've seen a little of this in our lives as comedians. You
Oh,
you you go towards dark humor because that's the stuff that makes you laugh the most. Because the more typical humor doesn't really make you laugh
yeah. I've
when you
yeah.
yeah
I've been to many New Jersey open mics.
yeah. I mean when your life and you're making your life and your livelihood of comedy, like regular comedy doesn't quite do it for you anymore. You need like a stronger hit of something. So
Yeah.
they gravitate towards the dark humor, and a lot of comedians they are prone to depression, and they are Prone to dark humor.
Yeah, and there was actually another line they had when they were looking at all the people at the funeral. At one point, Modern Doug says, "Look, you were beloved by so many white people."
Yes, that's a great line.
Yeah,
That's a great line.
Oh,
Another.
another line. Another line they said was where Modern Doug tells Doug Kenny, "Say, oh, if it helps any, like in the future, people actually love Caddyshack. It becomes people actually get obnoxious about it."
Yes, which that is a good way to put it.
Oh.
And another quote from Bill Murray. You see him. He's just standing there with Gilda Radner, and Bill Murray just says, "Every funny person in the world is here, and no one's laughing."
Whew.
And this is like even Belushi's at the funeral. Like Doug Kenny, he passed even before John Belushi did in 1982. So, and the Will Forte Doug Kenny hears Bill Murray say this, and he's just like, this can't stand. And he goes up and he whispers in his friend Henry's ear, and Henry starts a food fight.
Yeah, because that starting a food fight is a futile and stupid gesture.
And it's a great bookend for the film, from them starting a food fight at Harvard, and then as we have a food fight that's playing in slow motion, and the song "Beautiful Dreamer" comes up again, and it's and it just closes on the two Dougs standing side by side, smiling.
Yeah.
And it's great. I got genuinely like a little teary at the end of this movie, man.
Yeah, I honestly didn't expect it to end on such a sweet, heartfelt note. Like, it was really just because throughout the whole movie there's a lot of, kind of, I don't want to say, I guess, snarky or subversive humor throughout the whole thing. But there was also some heart in it here and there, like especially the stuff with Doug and Henry and the stuff with his parents. There's like a lot of very emotional, serious, heartfelt parts here and there. And it just ends on a very sort of super sweet note, which was like I was not expecting, but I enjoyed it immensely.
But I liked it. It felt earned to me. It didn't feel like it was out of nowhere. I thought they foreshadowed that stuff enough that it worked. So I really liked it.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was like 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, I really love this movie. This was probably about the third time I've watched it all the way through. It blew me away when I first saw it, and I watched it another time just for myself, and then I watched it a third time for the podcast, and it's been a pleasure every time.
Yeah, and
I really dug it. And the closing credits, we have Martin Mull singing a very nice song, which I don't know for sure if it's an original song to the movie. But the lyrics, and I'm not sure if I have the title correct, but the lyrics are "I've had the time of my life," and the lyrics sort of allude to many of the things we see in the movie.
Yeah, it's not the song from Dirty Dancing; it's something else.
Yeah, yes, we should clarify. It is not the Dirty Dancing song. No one hoists somebody up over their heads like Patrick Swayze.
Yeah.
Although I bet John Belushi could have done that if he wanted to.
That's the director's cut.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a way to go at the end of the film, with everybody just dancing like the end of Dirty Dancing. But, maybe in the sequel about Doug Kenny in the afterlife.
Yeah, that's a choice. It's a choice.
It's a choice. It's a choice.
All right. So do you want to talk about that scene they had where they showed all the stuff that they kind of cut out for artistic purposes?
Yeah. There's about midway through the film where Martin Mull is just addressing the audience directly. He said he talks about like, hey, there are a lot of things that we did for dramatic purposes or things that we got wrong or left out, and here they all are, and they just run them in a quick scroll that's like too fast to read. But somebody actually did screen caps of all of them in the movie, and they put them up on IMDb. So I figured it might be fun to read them all. You want to just like alternate on these?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. Why don't you start?
All right. Doug and Henry did not meet at a freshman mixer. Henry was in the class above Doug. Lord of the Rings was published after Doug Henry graduated from college. So was the Time parody. Peter Ivers was Doug's Harvard classmate, but he was not a member of the Harvard Lampoon. Doug did not have to persuade Henry into starting the magazine. Henry was on board from the beginning. The Harvard Lampoon did field a team of children did field a team of children to play softball for them, but that happened in the 1990s. Doug and Henry had met Maddie Simmons earlier. He helped them sell ads for a 1968 Harvard Lampoon parody of Life magazine. There was a third founder of National Lampoon named Rob Hoffman. Hoffman negotiated the contract with Maddie, but soon left to join his father's soft drink bottling business in Dallas. And Beats, Tony Hendra, and Brian McConaughey were not part of the Lampoon at its birth. They joined later. Tony Hendra performed on The Ed Sullivan Show with a partner, Nick Aulet. And Beats' confrontation with a construction worker is based on a sketch he wrote for Saturday Night Live.
I meant read every other one, but the way that's a choice. That's a choice.
I thought we were going to read them all. Oh, son of a beast thing.
You just kept going, so I was like, all right, yeah, screw it. He's rolling.
All right. I made a choice.
Yeah, so here's the next card of artistic licenses. Mogdar is technically a dwarf planet. Doug appeared on Tom Snyder's talk show with Chris Miller. Doug and Tony Hendra didn't swap vices. It was Tony and Michael O'Donoghue who did. The Marshmallows piece was written by Robert Height, which may have been Doug's pseudonym. That's not Will Forte's real hair.
What?
There are some mild spoilers below about the rest of the movie. You can keep reading or just come back later. We'll be here. The live show Lemmings actually came first, before the creation of the radio hour. Gilda Radner was not in Lemmings, but she did perform in another production called The National Lampoon Show. As far as we know, Alex never walked in on Doug with another woman, but she did eventually learn about his affair with Mary. Doug first ran away from National Lampoon in 1971. He went to Martha's Vineyard with Mary, and then later went to see Peter Ivers and Lucy Fisher, who lived in Los Angeles. Ann Beats and Michael O'Donoghue quit National Lampoon over the phone with Maddie Simmons, not in the office. The editor who dialed 911 while in a fight with Maddie was Ted Mann, not Tony Hendra.
And to round things out, Doug's brother Daniel succumbed to a long illness and died in 1968 when Doug was in college. Everyone was a lot more sexist and racist than they appeared to be. I mean, who isn't? The idea to do a standalone yearbook parody came from Maddie Simmons, and it was based on a piece Doug and Michael O'Donoghue wrote for the magazine. Doug met Katherine Walker at a party at her apartment, not at a bar, but he did bite into a wine glass like a crazy person. I cannot get over that.
Yeah, I know.
Chevy Chase was not there when Doug delivered goats to his parents, but Doug did buy them goats. While on a date with Katherine, Doug sang "When You Wish Upon a Star" to her, but we couldn't afford that song.
Disney.
Yeah. The line about ships and sinking rats comes from Sean Kelly. Animal House and Caddyshack were made for different studios. Brad, Joe Latruilo character, the studio executive, is a composite character. Doug showed a drawer full of cocaine to Rick Meyerowitz, not Chris Miller. Doug saw Airplane with Peter Ivers, not with Katherine Walker. Also, it was Peter Ivers who found Doug's uncashed check. Doug and Henry did meet up in New York, but not the day of the Caddyshack press conference.
Yeah, so that's a lot of things, it seems like, especially when you have them all on a list like that. But it's probably no more or less than you would find in most biopics.
Yeah, you know? I mean, there's nothing egregious, I don't think.
I mean, I think the only one that really seems major is that Doug's brother Daniel actually died when Doug was in college, not when he was a kid. I think that was probably one of the only big breaks from reality. The rest?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, I mean, the rest, it seems like the movie in places, it's more spiritually true than more factually true, which I think that's probably what you want to do if you're making a good biopic. You're going to go with what's going to make the most dramatic scene, because real life doesn't have a 3-act structure.
It does not.
It does not. It's just like a bunch of things that happen. And sometimes they make sense, but most of them do not.
Yeah, absolutely. Hear, hear.
Yeah. So, but you know, you want your movies to make sense, and you want someone's life to make sense. And I don't know. I feel like I'm gearing up for a bigger point here, but I don't really have one.
Oh, God. Just not a food fight.
Just like in life, things trail off and don't come to a firm conclusion sometimes. Like that monologue I just had.
Oh boy. Oh, Jonathan.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not Jonathan.
I know. It's Jonathan. It's just funnier. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, we put the word out on Twitter. A lot of people kind of said, had their say about this movie. A lot of people said, of course, Chevy Chase. Joel McHale playing Chevy Chase with an amazing performance. Tom Lennon as Michael Donahue was like spot on, and a few people said that the documentary was better. The Drunk, Stone, Brilliant, Dead documentary, which I haven't got a chance to see that, but I mean, have you checked that out?
Yeah, I have watched that. That is also good. I mean, it's a different sort of thing. It's just more. There's also a book by that same title, which was an oral history of it, and that's interesting because you just get everybody telling their recollections, and some of them might contradict each other. So you just kind of decide for yourself where the truth lies, and you can't necessarily do that in most movies. So
I hear you.
But it's worth seeing. It's worth seeing, especially if you're into comedy and you're curious about Doug Kenny and the National Lampoon in particular.
Here. And I guess that's the episode, man. That's that's a long one.
This was a long one, but there's a lot to get into with David Wayne responding to our tweet and all.
Absolutely. This was due. This was needed.
Yep. So that's it. We're not positive what we're doing next week. If the pattern of the last few weeks hold, we suspect that SNL might be coming back with another SNL at Home episode, but they haven't announced the last couple ones until the Thursday before. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. We're not going to say just yet what we're going to do. We're going to bide our time and see. We'll let SNL make the first move.
That's right. We're prepared with something if SNL does not do a new episode. So yeah, we will be back and talking about something in any event.
Yes.
But we're not going to announce that quite yet.
Right.
We'll announce. We'll let SNL make the first move because we're sick of SNL announcing an episode after we've announced something and making us look the fool. And we will not have it, SNL.
We won't have it.
We won't have. We will not stand for it.
That's right. Oh, so angry.
I'm shaking my fist in the air right now.
Oh, I'm starting a food fight.
Yeah.
There's no one here, but it's just me. I'm just throwing food against the wall, I guess.
Yeah. I'm just throwing food on myself, which is just really, really foolish.
Oh boy,
it's not easy to go to the grocery store these days, guys.
Oh man. All right, but yeah. So either way, you're gonna get a new episode soon enough. And if you want to follow me,
of
the SNL Nerds, yes. And if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you can find me at Darren Credible. That's DARIN Credible.
Yeah, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Trumbull Comic. That is TRUMBULL and the word comic. And you can follow the show's Twitter page at SNL Nerds Show.
All right, and I guess that's all I gotta say. And this was a good one.
That's all we got. We don't got no more. They're tossing a cape on me, James Brown style. So we're all done. So until we're back with something new next week, until then, nerds out. And literally just after I said that, I remembered a little bit of trivia that I didn't get into the episode where Joel McHale was talking about playing Chevy Chase, and he was saying he wanted to get his voice deep as Chevy's was back in the day. And so he would shout in his trailer for 15 minutes to get his throat sore.
Oh, shit.
And
I didn't know that.
Say that. But you know what? We're still recording. So, Frank, hey, if you want to stick this in somewhere as a post-credits Avengers style thing, go
You're welcome, Frank.
You're welcome, Frank.
Yes. We give you more work to do.
Yes. Okay, we're really done now. I'm gonna stop taping.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.